moment. Was not being recorded. So I will start that from the top. Excuse me in that capacity. Um, Giving you a background about myself again, for those who heard it before, but you'll get the double down now. So hope you pick it up. Um, Excuse me, my name's Ian Roland Berry, and I've spent the last several years building, scaling, and optimizing brands on the Amazon ecosystem and off for both clientels and my own brand, Brushy, which have grown into a multi-million-dollar operation. My work is centered around one particular thing, and that's optimizing systems and platforms for growth. Specifically, the old levers on the Amazon ecosystem, which used to work, they still work to a certain extent, but if you want to, separate yourself and get above and beyond what those that are doing, and just find yourself in a stagnant place, or just looking to take yourself beyond, where you're currently at, a new ball game has to be played. There's a new discussion around what actually drives scale, what stalls it, and kind of what separates brands from, those that are seeing maximized growth and those that are plateaued. And that's the perspective that I'm drawing on today. Again, for what we've achieved organizationally with my own brand, and also what we've done for countless other brands that are doing, over 8 figures on the platform. And so now, just hopping into the untapped discussion that most aren't speaking to in that regard. So most talk about, when you're talking about Amazon ecosystem, you've heard it, listing optimization, your graphics, your PPC, so on and so forth. And all of those things matter. So don't hear what I'm not saying, right? You absolutely need a fully optimized PDP that is best in class. You absolutely need to make sure your buy box is on point and everything is sound with regards to registry and things of that nature. And you absolutely need to make sure that your marketing and your fundamentals are sound with regards to your PPC play. But that's the baseline, right? The real game, truthfully, is now, what does your ecosystem look like organizationally outside of the Amazon ecosystem? What do your economics look like with regards to your SKUs? How does your offer structure work within the Amazon ecosystem? How does your back end engine of your organization look, including that of your supply chain and your structure in that respect, and also what you're doing off platform? So today I'm going to walk through what I would call some of those core pillars that are often discussed outside of just the marketing angle of things, so that we can kind of unpack exactly the levers that scaled my brand and multiple other brands that we work with, by taking a holistic approach towards growth and not just focusing solely on what is the pure Amazon fundamentals that most speak to towards driving growth. Pillar one in that respect is what I like to call the pure COGS optimization. So we're speaking from the standpoint of reducing your cost of goods sold by optimizing and or other levers within your organization by just optimizing your supplier relationship. This can lead to cleaner negotiations, provide a better supplier selection process, validating your pricing with actual data, and never accepting the first number that comes across. And so I find that most, whenever they enter into at least, even if you're a foundational brand or new brand, you can sometimes become complacent or feel that, well, I have this one particular thing that's working for me, and let's not dabble with that, and or you potentially feel stuck in a certain segment and or deal that you have around specifically the factory. And that, in some cases, you are in a situation just based on the terms and the structure of how your arrangement is there, but often there's wiggle room, and especially if you've created traction. And what the discussions, here is that we want to be able to leverage that traction that you've created to be able to create yourself a better picture for your organization. But by doing that, by building that relationship with your factory and giving them the vision behind it. More specifically, perfect example of this is and I'll go into the second layer of this in pillar two, is how to actually execute on this. But, we're able to recently, negotiate terms, with one of our organizations by reducing their cost of goods sold by 57%. And this is on a multi-million-dollar business, and coming up with a better product by being able to leverage, what we currently had with regards to proof of concept through sales, through marketing, all of those things, and work with the different factories to create not just a better product, but again, a product that came at a 57% reduction in COGS. And that's tremendous. I mean, what that does for your ability to reinvest into your ecosystem, the ability to afford higher acquisition costs from your clients and your customers, and create a healthier and scalable financial environment. I mean, that can't be overlooked in any capacity. These are the things that as the Amazon ecosystem becomes a lot more inundated and I don't want to say it's the best way. Not watered down, but just to say more essentially competition within the ecosystem, especially coming from manufacturers themselves that learned how to play the game. You're not going to beat them on price. So outside of winning through brand, you have to do what's within your ability to maximize on the things that you do have within your control, while also maximizing on your brand output. And without question, leveraging what you've already built into the proof of concept is a major play with that. And if you're more a newer brand towards the ecosystem, you might not have necessarily that particular element to speak to that particular play with regards to traction you have to negotiate that particular COGS element. But the hurdle that you may face from the very beginning is, well, let's talk about the MOQs of things. From at the whenever you entered into the ecosystem and in any situation, whether Amazon or off Amazon, and you have higher MOQs that can trap you into cash flow issues or create a scenario where it just makes it difficult for you to be able to reinvest into those particular capacities and or launch in general. Building a structure of a discussion with your supplier to not just say, hey, can I get lower MOQs, but to actually build the why around that is integral. And again, I'll go into that shortly with regards to the phase 2 of the actual execution. And then within that same pillar of optimization comes the product development angle of things. If you're established, we're talking about now taking what you've already created from that from your hero SKU and building an ecosystem around it with regards to maximizing on what you've learned from your reviews, your returns, your customer requests, where competitors are failing, and also from how your organization is structured from a profitability perspective with regards to your margins and adding in complementary items that support that. And so how you actually go about these particular levers is pillar 2 with regards to the execution. And that's treating your supplier and who you're working with as a partner. Often I see many brands come in and they'll want to have a discussion around, hey, can you help me reduce my, I just want a cheaper price on goods, or can you give me lower cost of, can you give me lower MOQs if you're newer, what have you. But what you actually want to do is create a framework that tells them the story behind the why. We've supported brands. We've supported recently, again, with my own organization as well. We were growing faster than what was allowed for us with regards to cash flow. And so we negotiated the terms by just taking a look at our financial model, which allowed us to essentially get a floated net terms on our arrangement for a small premium, which was 1.5%, which created significantly better cash flow for us organizationally and allowed us to expand on our growth tremendously. And there are multiple ways to leverage your traction to unlock these better terms. But the way that we did that essentially was by providing a framework, which was putting forth into a presentation and speaking to hey, here's where we are. Here's what we've proven with what's on the market. And here's what we can leverage with your support. Here's what we can unlock, which benefits you. And so when you label in that perspective, it's very clear, it's very concise, it's laid out, and it's presented in that form. That's not just asking for a discount. That goes nowhere. What you've aligned is created a strategy which discusses, hey, here's how we create a win-win scenario based on the market. And if you're new, this doesn't prevent a scenario for you also where you're prohibited from doing this. You can do the same thing based on the research and the due diligence that led you to start this endeavor in the first place by providing them with, hey, here's how the market stands, and here's how you can support us with regards to scaling on this. But this is how leveraging and allowing us to have smaller MOQs allows us to invest our capital into growth to support getting to here. Because inevitably the factory as well makes more off of your volume. Therefore, if you articulate yourself in that capacity, it's not always a yes, right? But it creates a significantly better dynamic for you moving forward and may actually get you exactly what you're looking for. And with respect to the product development side of things, this is one that is often misunderstood and underutilized in the Amazon ecosystem because many, if you're in a situation, especially if you're, I won't say stuck or flat or capped, and let's say that you have a very high volume product with low profit, or on the other end of things, you have a high profit product with low volume, you can adding in additional elements into your eco structure to point towards maximizing wherever you may lack is a optimal framework, which you should absolutely be considering, and not just adding on a Me Too product, but again, looking at your reviews as such on your returns, your feedback to build on this. Because if you, for example, the high volume product, but it has low product, you could create a scenario where you open up and create a product which has significantly better margins that might not have as high volume, that then become your margin, that then become the drivers for you to create a healthy profitability mix in your organization. Or on the other end of the spectrum, if you have if your hero product or what have you has high profit but low volume, then you can introduce a product essentially that's more of a stability SKU that widens the funnel, that has more volume, and not necessarily maximizing necessarily on profitability out the door as much so as your hero, but it provides a complementary mix overarchingly to your ecosystem. And that's just kind of, that's again, it's ecosystem math. You build strength where there's weakness, and you do it intentionally, not randomly, not by chasing trends, but by looking at collectively what you've created as a strength and leveraging that. And so essentially, everything that I shared today is, often some of the things that founders, brands, they don't speak to. Again, this is a discussion around PPC, around listing optimizations. Everyone knows you need A+. This is focusing on what actually provides maximized growth outside and what's required in today's element of the Amazon ecosystem to really get your organization to where you need to go. Because if you want real growth, you need to master your back end. You need to master your COGS, your MOQs, your product development, your factory alignment, and create what is essentially like an intentional ecosystem for expansion. That's how we've scaled multiple brands to 7 figures, because this is the real game. 7 figures and beyond. This is the real game. It's the game beyond the buy box that many don't speak to. So that was my breakdown for today. I'm going to hand this particular one off, and we will start with Nish, who's going to be speaking to you next, and I'll let him take the air.
Thanks, Ian. Appreciate that. So, name is Nish. I'm the owner and CEO of Fetch Fulfillment. So before this, I'm actually a physicist. I graduated from Cornell with a degree in applied physics. Spent half a decade in consulting and ops management, and then ever since then, hardcore logistics. Half a decade at Amazon, saved them $250 million a year in operating costs while I was there. Came out of that with a patent, and after leaving Amazon, raised capital from investors, found this 3PL, made the prior owner an offer he couldn't refuse, and walked in as the new owner and CEO as of May of 2023. So I've learned a few things on my journey here at Fetch that I'm hoping to share with you guys today. It sounds like you all are interested in margin for your brands, and so I just wanted to share a couple things I've seen to help brands drive up their margin. Number one, of course, everybody knows about the free shipping threshold. Getting your offer of free shipping at $50, $100 or up, that's a clear and obvious lever to help drive cart building, to reduce your overall fulfillment cost per unit. That's I think folks are pretty well aware of that. And I think what people aren't as familiar with is how do you actually drive down the fulfillment cost? What can you do with your packaging to actually drive down fulfillment costs? And so I'm here to share a little bit about touchless fulfillment and how you can take advantage of that in your brand's fulfillment strategy and cut costs out of your logistics. So in general, our industry is moving towards touchless fulfillment. So today you're seeing a bunch of people take a bunch of stuff, pick it, pack it into a box, stuff that box with dunnage, tape that box closed, and then weigh and dimension that box, and then print the label for that. And so that takes about a minute, sometimes even 2 minutes to pack out a box. And what I'm seeing smarter brands do these days is they do this thing called ready-to-ship packaging. So that's like step one of touchless fulfillment. And what that means is basically you send your product into your warehouse already pre-packaged and ready to ship. So you don't have to stuff that into another outer box. You don't have to stuff it in void fill. You don't have to tape that box closed. You don't have to wait and dimension that box. It's basically ready to go. So if you're able to do that, your warehouse can just peel and stick a label and off it goes. So that saves a minute to even 2 minutes on the fulfillment side. And you can get your costs down by about 75% in fulfillment, and you don't have to pay the fulfillment center for them to source boxes on your behalf. So that I've seen, if you have a high share of single unit orders, where you're like, we see this often with tech brands where you're shipping, an iPhone, a smartwatch, whatever it is, those tend to do really well with ready to ship packaging. In the future, we're also moving towards digital labels. So this is already required in healthcare, where you have a GS1 standard barcode on the outside, a QR code on the outside of your product, which has a SKU, a lot number, an expiration date, a serial number, all that encoded into a single scannable on the outside of your product. The carriers nowadays are able to treat that as bring your own tracking. So if it uniquely identifies that product, there are now a few carriers out there. Better Trucks is one of them. They launched a month and a half ago with this. FedEx is now looking into this. They're looking to bring your own tracking. And so that removes even that peel and stick component and makes it even faster to fulfill. You can just go beep, shipped, beep, shipped. Now, the next step that comes after that is coincident delivery. So you probably noticed, if you're ordering a bunch of stuff from Amazon as an individual shopper, you'll notice Amazon nowadays just carpet bombs your doorstep with a bunch of different individual small packages. That's a change that happened about 10 years ago, and Amazon has saved a few $100 million a year on fulfillment costs by doing that. So Amazon realized that rather than sticking everything into a single box, when their driver drops off one package or two packages, it takes them roughly about the same time to drop off those packages. And so they realized that they get way more efficiency by just single unit shipping everything coming out of the warehouse. And now carriers are starting to offer that commercially as well to small shippers like you and me. And so if you're able to negotiate with your carrier for per stop pricing instead of per label pricing, you can now avoid overpacking all of your individual units that are shipped and save even more cash. And so when you add those three things together, you add up ready to ship packaging, you add up digital labels, and you add up coincident delivery with per stop pricing from your carriers. I mean, you don't have to do anything in the fulfillment center besides, scan, ship, scan, ship, scan, ship. You don't have to peel and stick. You don't have to stuff into a box. You've reduced your labor by 90% plus, and your fulfillment center can give you savings that comes out from that. So if you're able to work with your 3PL on implementing those strategies, hopefully you're able to see some savings as well. All right, that's all I got. I'll hand the ball over to you. Ian, who's next?
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for that, Nish. Next will be Meghla.
All right, thank you. So I've got slides. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about some of the mistakes that you need to avoid if you're sourcing products from India. Just to give some quick background, so I've been in the sourcing industry for over 25 years now. I worked in India, in China for 10 years, Singapore, Philippines, and currently my company, India Sourcing Network, we help global importers source products from India. Okay, so the topics that I'm going to be covering in the next 10 minutes or so. First of all, why you should consider sourcing products from India, what are the mistakes to avoid, and how India Sourcing Network can help you source from India. Okay, so first of all, why you should consider sourcing products from India. Of course, China is the main manufacturing hub in the world, producing any and every product. But there are a lot of alternatives that are coming up, and India is one of the key alternatives. And one of the biggest risks, of course, is the geopolitical tension between especially the US and China. And that's causing a lot of importers to diversify their sourcing to different countries. It's not a good business strategy to put all your eggs in one basket. So as we've seen with the tariffs and with COVID a couple of years ago, like if you're dependent on one country, that's really putting your supply chain at risk. So diversification is really important in today's day and age. Production costs overall have been rising in China for the last 5, 6, 10 years or so. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of the low value production has in fact been moving out of China. So you'll see, like, for example, garments are moving to low cost countries such as Bangladesh, Vietnam, Indonesia, India, Sri Lanka. And similarly, shoes have, quite a lot of the low end basic kind of shoes have moved to Vietnam because even Chinese companies and the Chinese government want production to sort of move up the value chain. And China is focusing more on high-end premium products and doing more R&D and, now, of course, robotics and AI and all of that. So a lot of the low value production is kind of moving away from China. So if your product does require labor, if it's labor intensive, then India is a really good option for that. Here's a study that I just want to highlight where this importer, Dan Krasenstein, he basically produced the same bag in 3 countries, China, Vietnam, and India. And they did a comparison of the overall costs. So if China was 0, Vietnam was -6%, and India was -37%. And this is taking into consideration that overall the efficiency in Vietnam and India, is much lower than China. Despite that, the overall cost of producing a bag was 37% less than it was in China. So for certain products, India is a really good option where there's more labor involved because labor is, of course, really cheap. You can see over here, monthly wages in China, $1,200, Vietnam, $750, and India, $300. So that in itself, helps you really bring the product cost down. Better IP protection in India as well. So generally, most of the Indian factories, they don't sell directly on Amazon or they don't sell D2C. A lot of the Chinese factories are in fact selling directly on Amazon under their own brands, while at the same time selling B2B or, doing private label. And what happens is because these factories are selling on Amazon directly, they oftentimes become your competitors. So it's very common if you have a unique product, you get it sourced in China, and in a couple of weeks later, months later, a similar product is on Amazon competing with you at a much lower price. And it's in most cases, either your factory or another factory in China producing that product at a lower cost. That happens less frequently in India because most factories, they are not selling directly on Amazon or D2C. They're more focused on B2B production. India also has a lot of unique products. So there's a lot of local handcrafted products that are very popular on Amazon. And these are mostly made from natural materials such as metal, wood, glass, ceramic, fabrics, leather. And a lot of these products are actually made by artisans that are skilled in working with these materials. And the skills have been passed down from one generation to another. So you won't find these kinds of unique products in other countries. And even though these are handcrafted products, they are produced at scale and they are produced specifically for exports, keeping in mind the design requirements, the colors, etc., of export markets like the US and Europe. Because a lot of these products are handcrafted, lower MOQs are possible. So sometimes the MOQ can be as low as 200 pieces per item. Many suppliers also have what is known as MOV, or minimum order value, where they say, okay, you can source or you can place an order of, let's say, $3,000, $5,000, and you can mix and match and have a variety of SKUs within that order. And that is advantageous if you are maybe just starting out, you want to test different products, or if you just want to offer a wider number of SKUs and have fewer items of each so that you can test which one sells more. So that is one advantage. So handcrafted items is one of the categories in India that's doing quite well, but there are other categories, of course, that are manufactured at scale, and there's automated production as well. But I'm just highlighting this product category because a lot of Amazon sellers, e-commerce sellers, are finding success in these kinds of products. Okay, so let's get into the mistakes to avoid. First of all is treating India like China. Now, China is, of course, it can manufacture anything and everything. In China, it's not a matter of if a product can be manufactured, it's really a question of how much can it be manufactured for. However, India has its own specific USPs, its own specific product categories that it specializes in. However, not all products are made in India. For example, if you're looking for electronics, then China is really the only place to go. In fact, no other country in the world really competes with China when it comes to producing private label electronics products. But India specializes in, first of all, these handcrafted products, then textiles, especially organic cotton textiles. That is a very, huge export product category from India. India is one of the largest cotton producers in the world as well. So if you're looking for cotton apparel, home furnishings, textiles, baby wear, any kind of cotton textile-based product, India is a really good place to go for that. There are a lot of small, mid-sized factories in India as well, and there are pros and cons of working with small, mid-sized factories. If you yourself are a smallish kind of buyer or just starting out, with your brand, then it makes sense to work with a small or mid-sized factory because they are more flexible and they'll be able to meet your specific requirements. Many of the larger factories, have higher MOQ requirements and they're not as flexible. So it is advantageous working with, small, mid-sized factories. Many companies in India are family-owned businesses, and this does happen in China as well. Many factories there are family-owned too, but as they get bigger, in India, in many cases you're actually working directly with the owner of the factory, and maybe their son, their daughter. So they're very involved in the day-to-day business, and usually they are the face of the factory. So how do you avoid this kind of mistake? Source the products that India specializes in, and also focus on building trust and long-term relationships when you're sourcing in India. Whereas sourcing in China can sometimes be very transactional, even though there is the concept of guanxi in India, which is business relationships. However, in India, relationships are even more important. And as you build trust and a closer relationship with your supplier, the better payment terms you're likely to get. They will prioritize your orders overall. And it helps with sourcing in the long term. Okay, second mistake is not vetting suppliers properly. Now, what happens is a lot of times people just go online, search for, manufacturer of so-and-so products in India, and they go to a couple of, these online websites. For example, there's a couple of websites that are really focused on the domestic market, but they rank very highly on Google. For example, IndiaMart is one such website. So if you go there, contact the supplier, and place an order, you might not get very good quality products because a lot of the suppliers that are listed on this marketplace are actually focused on the domestic market. They don't really cater to exports. They don't understand export requirements. They don't know the quality standards. And but they will take your order because, of course, why would they refuse your order, right? Many of them don't even have export licenses. So when you're sourcing from India, it's really important to understand who you are sourcing with. What is your company really export experienced, first of all? And secondly, are they even a real factory? Like many times what happens, and this happens in China as well, in fact, on Alibaba, most of the companies that are listed are actually trading companies. And the same happens in India too. There are a lot of traders that, kind of pretend to have factories, and that becomes an issue. So you really need to understand, does the factory, does the supplier that I'm talking to, do they have a real factory? What are their actual capabilities? Are they able to produce the specific product that I am looking for? Another thing that happens in India is that there is this yes culture, right? They don't want to say no to you. And this happens in China as well quite often. So if you ask them if they can make a specific product, they'll say, yes, of course we can. Even though they can't make it themselves, they'll probably outsource it from somewhere. And they might not have the internal capabilities of producing that product. And when they outsource the product, then there could be quality issues and delays, and they don't have that much control over the overall production process. So make sure that the supplier has capabilities, in-house capabilities of producing the product that you are looking for. For example, there's a city called Muradabad in North India that specializes in metal and wooden items. And so a lot of companies there, they either focus on metal or wood because the processes are different, the skill sets required are different. So usually they'll, maybe do metal products in-house and outsource the wooden products. So if you are looking for metal products, then make sure that you are sourcing from a company that really specializes in metal. So you can conduct factory audits. There are a lot of third-party inspection companies or sourcing agencies, like our company, India Sourcing Network, also does factory audits. Costs a couple $100. So just send a person to the factory, take pictures, and actually see what's, what kind of equipment and capabilities they have. The best way, of course, is to visit factories yourself, especially if the order volume is going to be high and it's a long-term game. Then visit the factory if possible. Or you can also hire a sourcing agency like India Sourcing Network to visit the factory and source on your behalf. Picking the wrong factory. Now, this is also a really big mistake, because what happens is that if your orders are too small, then a large factory is not suitable for you. They're not going to prioritize your orders, even though they might have a great range of products. The quality may be fantastic, but if you are not able to, meet their MOQs, or if they are focusing more on the Walmarts and TJ Maxx and all, then they're not going to be prioritizing your orders. So make sure that your factory, the factory that you choose, is right for your requirements. At the same time, if you are planning to scale and maybe you want to do a small test order initially, but the second, third orders you want to invest a large amount, then you want to make sure that your factory has the capacity to produce larger orders as well. So selecting a factory that's right for your business is really important. And of course, also, as I just mentioned, the factory should specialize in the product that you are sourcing. So how to avoid this? Pick a factory that fits your size and understand their capability. And there are a couple of different ways of understanding their capability. I mean, if you can't visit the factory, or if you can't hire a sourcing agency or do a factory audit, then get on a video call with them. One of the advantages of sourcing in India is that communication is much easier with suppliers, because most of the suppliers that you will talk to or deal with, they will speak in English, even though the accents might be different. But you can get on a WhatsApp call, or you can get on a Zoom video call and just talk to them, have a conversation, and ask them to, take you around their factory, for example, or ask them what kinds of buyers they have, what kind of equipment they have, what are the types of products that they usually produce. So that will really give you an idea of their capabilities. Okay, lack of clear product specs. Now, this very often happens, and you can see this little image over here where this person is actually referring to a computer mouse, but this person thinks it's the animal mouse. So this happens very often, and this results in quality issues. In fact, miscommunication is the #1 reason for quality issues in sourcing. So first of all, make sure that whatever information you need to provide to the supplier is well documented and is presented in one document. Make sure that you have tech packs if it's a textile-based products, visual guides, packing specifications, and be as detailed as possible. Don't let the supplier assume anything about your product. Prepare detailed product documentation and terms. So there are 3 key documents, and the agreement can be sort of an overarching agreement for all orders that you're going to be doing with a specific supplier. And this also can include your NDA if you have exclusive products. If you're just sourcing smaller quantities, then you can skip the agreement as well. And then you have one product specs document or a tech pack. And then, of course, you have the purchase order that includes specific details about that order, and also things like lead time, prices, etc. So make sure that everything is, structured, and all the information is provided in a structured way in one document. WhatsApp is very commonly used in India, whereas in China it's WeChat. So you can, communicate via WhatsApp. However, any formal communication or any changes that you want to make in the product or payment terms or anything that is a major change must be communicated via email, because WhatsApp messages get lost and maybe they didn't read the message, or yeah, it just gets lost. So make sure that there is one document for all the product specs, and all formal communication is done via email. Okay. And then number 5
Hey,
is shipping.
Meghla,
Yeah,
Meghla, just
yes.
want to pop in, was 10 minutes per, so I know that other people who are the panelists have things that they may have aligned here, so I
Yeah,
just want to make sure we're able to
this
get
is
to
the
everybody.
last, yeah, this is the last slide.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so shipping to the West Coast. So typically shipping from India to the West Coast takes longer and is more expensive. So it's better to ship to the East Coast. Make sure that you have a 3PL in and around either New York or New Jersey, and that will help you save on logistics costs overall. Okay, how India Sourcing Network can help you. So we offer sourcing services. We can manage the entire sourcing process for you, starting from finding suppliers to managing quality, payments, exporting the product, and also logistics. We also offer private sourcing trips. We also do a group sourcing trip to India, and we offer sourcing consultancies as well. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at info@indiasourcing.net, and you can get more information at indiasourcing.net. All right, that's it from me. Thank you. Back to you, Ian.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for that. Fabricio, unpack, my man.
All right. Okay. Thank you, everybody who's here. I know that we have a bunch of note taker apps as live participants, which is a new trend. But I know that we had 200 plus people signing up. So whoever is not here and is hearing this through a recording, I hope you enjoy. We're talking about supply chain optimization. A lot about optimization is related to forecasting. So I thought that forecasting would be an interesting subject. So first, my name is Fabricio Miranda. I'm the founder and CEO of Flieber. Flieber is an inventory planning platform. We have 3 million plus SKUs in the platform, hundreds of brands using the platform. I'm not going to spend too much time here. You're going to be able to see this later or on the website. So let me jump straight to the presentation. How to improve forecasts with AI. First, initial concepts. You don't have an AI problem, we have a data problem. Everybody is obsessed by AI, and nobody understands that in anything related to machine learning algorithms or AI algorithms, data is crucial. So garbage in, garbage out. So most of the problems of people when they say that AI is not working is because the data they're feeding AI is terrible. So good data in a simple forecasting model is always better than bad data and an AI model. So AI models are not going to do a miracle. You need to have the good data for models to work. AI forecasting algorithms will become commodities. So don't think about building your own algorithms or implementing some things that are very special, wasting too much time or money, that they will become more and more commodities. They are already a little bit of commodities nowadays. If you go to a company called Nixla, Nixtla, they sell for a couple $100. They sell access to state-of-the-art AI models. So don't over complexify on this. Forecasting is not a one-time event. It's a continuous process. A lot of people make that mistake. They make a forecasting, they make a replenishment, and they stop there and they don't continue updating. And this is very important because when you make a replenishment, that's the first step of a process, of a life cycle of that product. And in that life cycle, the product will be produced, will be shipped, will be stored, will be sold. And in that process, you have a bunch of moments where you can still make decisions that will change how that product will first be stored, then will be fulfilled. And then if you need to change your sales space, for example, to adapt to changing the forecasts. Forecasting isn't about predicting, it's about adapting. It's impossible to reach 100% accuracy. Stop trying. You're never going to be accurate, 100% accurate. So start adapting. The key isn't perfect forecasting. It's how well your decisions cope with inaccuracies. Understand that forecasts will be inaccurate and live with that, and create systems to first capture that message and then make decisions. And why forecasting fails, there's a bunch of reasons here, but most of them relate to data. So data is where you should always start. So before I even talk about AI and forecasting, I want to talk about data. First, this is what most brands use as data to do their forecasts, which is the last 30 days. We receive brands every single day. We have hundreds of brands in the platform. I also co-founded all other companies that have thousands of brands in the platform. And it's crazy how almost everybody uses some kind of moving average. And when they're very, very robust, the moving averages, they're like doing a combination of averages of different periods. And this is ridiculous because if you have that much data, why are you going to use only this, right? So first, start using your sales history. At Flieber, for example, we download the whole history of data of the products. But then you have the second problem, which is anomalies. So in this case here, you had promotions, you had influencer campaigns, you had a stock out. If you don't substitute that for what would have been the sale if you were not out of stock, or for how your sales would have behaved if you didn't have that promotion, if you don't substitute that, you're going to be feeding your forecasts with bad data, and you're just going to forecast a new stock out. So extremely important step. In the ideal world, you would feed all of that into AI. So you feed your marketing plans and your pricing history and your inventory quantities, but we know that it's impossible to have all that data at hand. So it's important for you to work with that. And that can be even a spreadsheet that every single day you go to what happened yesterday, and you have like a new column saying adjusted sales, and you're like manually adjusting the sales for the products according to what would have happened if the anomalies didn't exist. It can be as simple as that. Then start working in layers. So first, benchmark forecast. Everybody uses 30-day moving average, as I was saying, but 30-day moving average doesn't capture seasonality, it doesn't capture cyclicality, trends, level shifts. So it's extremely important for you to capture that somehow. Once more, you can try to do that manually. Tools nowadays and algorithms nowadays are able to pick that. Right? After base forecast, you have to start adding restrictions. In this case here, I added here, when is the next possible delivery based on the lead time? So we know that we can only deliver the next batch on this line here. This here is today. This here is the lead time. And you have a stock out before that. So you cannot work with that stock out. You cannot solve that stock out. So it's important for you to understand that you're not going to sell on that day. And if you're really advanced, you're going to work with your marketing team to try to slow down sales during this period up to that stock out so that you can capture more margin and potentially avoid the stock out. So it's a win-win in that situation. But you cannot replace the products, replenish the products before you run out of stock. And it's important for you to have that visibility. So factor in here inventory restrictions, supply chain constraints, MOQs and cartons, pre-orders, back orders, return ratio. All of those things are restrictions to what you intend to sell. Then external inputs like promotions, ad campaigns, pricing strategy changes, SKU specific context, cannibalization effects, events and external factors, competitive dynamics. All of that plays a role. And in this case here, notice that we added a promotion here. And that promotion is now adding a new stock out here. But since this stock out is after the lead time, you can still place an order and cover it. So that's why we're not creating a restriction in the sales, although we're seeing a stock out here. So this is an alert that you need to replenish something as soon as possible so that you can cover that stock out. Once more, robust platforms can do that for you. All of those alerts and all of those replenishment needs can be done automatically by those tools. And then you have hundreds of extra complexities I put here. I'm not going to read them all, but you have multiple SKUs of the same product, multiple sales channels sharing the same inventory, products that are also components of kits and bundles. You have MOQs at the parent level, variable vendor and transfer lead time. So there's a bunch of other complexities that make the job of forecasting and then executing that extremely hard, right? So I didn't talk about AI up to now, and it was on purpose. It was just to show that this is a very complex product that deals with a bunch of different variables. Why AI? Because AI can handle scale, thousands of SKUs, years of data, various data sources, can handle complexity, multi-channel, multi-warehouse, kits and bundles, variations, can automate the heavy lifting, data input and cleaning, anomaly correction, raising flags. Raising flags is a very underrated feature that AI can do, is to start understanding patterns in the products and saying, hey, this product here is growing more than it should. This one is a new product, or this one is cannibalizing this other one. AI is great at that. That's in real time. It removes human bias. It improves over time and learns with experience. It frees the team to focus on strategy and not on spreadsheets. And it's able to receive and process context. So this is the most important part also, the receipt and the process of the context. Contextualizing data is what makes great results in AI. And so the main takeaways here are 6, basically. First, always focus. First, on having clean, correct data. Context is key. Second, don't obsess over forecast accuracy. Clear visibility and capacity to adapt quickly are more important. Keep your forecasts live. Never stop forecasting. Connect sales and inventory decisions. Create simple, consistent, repeatable processes that will allow you to try to always have what you need to sell and try to always sell what you have in stock. So those 2 levers are very important. Build a feedback loop. Create indicators that measure success, and find the right tool to automate most of the work and make better, more educated decisions. And this is it. My name is Fabricio. As I said, if you send a message to sales@flieber.com, you can talk to us. And if you go to flieber.com, you can learn more about us. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Beautiful. Thank you, Fabricio. Adam. Let me see if I can help you with the unmute. Okay, there we go.
Let me know if you're able to hear me.
Yes, sir.
Share my screen. Let me know if you're able to see it. All right, are we good? Perfect. Alrighty, so appreciate everybody being here. I'm going to talk about another area of opportunity, basically within that most e-commerce or D2C companies have accessible to them, right? In being able to look at their operation overall and be able to basically take advantage of opportunities to reduce cost, improve service levels, and then take that save money and algorithmic benefit if you're selling through a marketplace, and basically reinvest that in driving growth, right? So my company, FlexChain Holdings, I'm going to focus on one of our services. We offer a variety, but I'll focus on one, which is how you can optimize your parcel shipments for competitive advantage. So just a bit about me. My name is Adam Basson, founder and CEO of FlexChain. My background is working in e-commerce and operating roles as a head of supply chain planning and logistics in private equity environments, Fortune 500 environments, and I also worked prior to that as a consultant implementing enterprise systems and supply chain at Manhattan Associates. Background as an engineer and with supply chain as well. And for anybody who's University of Michigan who may see this, go blue. So a bit on distribution and its importance to retail, right? So omni-channel retailers, that's your D2C companies, Amazon, et cetera, are spending anywhere between 15 and 20% of their revenue on shipping expenses, right? And those shipping expenses are, that's everything from parcel outbound, which is by far the largest share, but also your containers that are coming inbound with your product, truckloads that are going between warehouses or to customers. So it's a huge chunk of spend, game changing, right? 30% to 40% of those shipments are moving distances of 1,000+ miles, right? And long distance shipments for the same volume are going to generally be 2 to 5x the cost of shipping that same volume locally, right? So there's a huge opportunity to basically take some of the money out of what's being fulfilled outbound and basically reinvest it in areas where you can kind of capture the market and grow your business. So I'm going to talk about zone skipping, right? As kind of an opportunity here. When I talk about taking volume and turning it into an opportunity to drive out cost. So zone skipping, we're going to look at an example here. We have a customer or shipper that's based in Northern California, right? And they're shipping parcels all over the United States to their various customers, right? So if they're shipping, let's take it, 1,000 parcels or, 2,000 parcels a day or a week, right? It could be, depending on what their cadence is and how they're, getting shipments out. But if they're shipping 2,000 parcels a day, 2,000 orders a day, right? Zone skipping is where you basically batch shipments that are going to similar regions into bulk loads, right? And then inject them to final mile hubs much closer to the end customer. So instead of sending long distance parcels from San Francisco to customers in the Midwest, right, and sending 223 packages, you can actually bundle those into pallets, move them as an LTL shipment, right? And then what you're effectively doing is you label the goods to be shipped from this final warehouse instead of from San Francisco. And so you're able to arbitrage almost $5,000 out of the cost of shipping those parcels, because now they're basically being treated as local shipments, right? And then you just have to handle this middle mile as a bulk shipment, right? So this is just, one example, right? Obviously, it depends on what your parcel rates are, what your products are moving, how much volume you have going to particular regions, right? But our system, right, at FlexChain, what we do is both ingest all of the, shipment data, right, for businesses, right? But then identify basically these, we identify these kind of bulk loads that are able to be created, right? But you could do this yourself too, right? If you know that you have a certain number of shipments that are, for customers that are in a particular region, you could create bulk loads, right? So palletized shipments, and then set up kind of either if you have a warehouse in that part of the country, right? So if you have multiple warehouses, or you have a 3PL you work with that's there, you can actually inject those parcels into that final mile location, right? And then ship the goods from there. And then you could save anywhere between 20 and 40% on the cost of those shipments, right? So huge amount of money, right? When you're looking at, something that's taking up 15 to 20% of your, if you're taking up 15 to 20% of your overall revenue, being able to drive 20 to 40% out of those costs. Right, so a few key use cases for this, right, for you to consider if zone skipping could be of benefit to your business. Obviously, you need enough volume where you're at least able to fill up pallets with the packages that you're shipping on any given day to a particular region, right? So if you don't have enough daily order volume to have a palletized shipment go to the West Coast or go to, the Midwest, et cetera, then, zone skipping to that region is not really going to make sense. It makes sense more just to stick with a national carrier there. But if you do, right, whether and it could be for your air shipments, or so if you're doing express shipping, you could do zone skip via what they call an air skip, where you move it, where you have basically, you do an air shipment, right, in bulk, and then release it to a final mile warehouse, in the customer, or you could do it with LTL or full truck, depending on how much volume you're dealing with. But you could basically do this on your customer orders, right? So your daily customer orders, run analysis, break them up into bulk shipments, set up those injections, right, to basically get your goods to the final warehouse, and basically drive out the cost from a national carrier, right? So take your FedEx Zone 8 shipments and turn them into FedEx Zone 2 shipments. You can also take advantage of this for accessing regional carriers, right? So this would be if you wanted to work with the On-Tracks, the CDLs, Better Trucks, right? Any of the different regional carriers that are operating around the country, right? Where you have customers in those locations, but they don't do pickups where you are, but you could get better rates if you were able to ship there, right? So you can zone skip into those final regional carrier hubs and then just hand off the goods to the regional carriers there and basically take advantage of those savings, right? There's also opportunities with supplier drop shipping to your stores or store replenishment, right? If you're having basically any shipments that are being shipped on your parcel account, but not by you, you can take advantage of that if it's significant volume to zone skip those shipments. And then another common one is international parcel, right? So if you're shipping from Europe or Canada into the US, right, instead of shipping them as single individual packages, you can put them all together, right, move them in bulk, and then take advantage of local rates and save a lot of money. If you're curious about potentially how much savings it could drive for you based on some of your shipment characteristics, we have a very high level calculator on, if you go to www.flexchain.holdings/zone-skipping-service, right? We have a calculator if you scroll down on the page where you could put in some information about, how much your annual parcel shipping spend is, what the average parcel weight that you for your shipments are, and then what percent of those are going long distance today. And we'll generate kind of a rough range of the savings that you might be able to drive for your business. So feel free to use that. Again, just consider this, right? Just think and more broadly, always look for opportunities to turn your volume into an advantage, right? So zone skipping is one example, carrier negotiations are another example, distribution network setup, opening new warehouses. There's other ways you can do this, but just, that's definitely the way to scale and to be able to compete in the world of Amazon. And that concludes my portion, but, again, feel free to reach out to me anytime. Again, Adam Basson. You can reach me at adam@flexchain.holdings, and appreciate you guys for joining.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Adam. Richard.
Hey, Ian, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Good. You guys see me okay?
Good to go.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right. Well, welcome everybody to this. I'm taking a totally different approach today. Maybe that'll help bring some stuff together. But we've talked technology, we've talked cost savings, we've talked how to be more efficient. We talked optimization within the warehousing space, technology, AI implementation. That's the buzzword everywhere these days. But the one part that we always forget is, the human side of things, right? So a little background about me. My name is Richardson. I'm in RicheRich, LLC. Easy to remember. We're in the marketing space, brand building, management, and equity space, and helping those brands get beyond their reach the target audiences. But part of all of that ecosystem as I build it out for brands was making sure that I stumbled into the logistics space and own 3PLs and now part of 3PL warehouses throughout in Texas and in Florida, and partnered with a lot of other 3PLs through collaboration. I'm working with a lot of trucking companies and partnered with some. I do distribution of goods because if my customers want to get to other places and they don't have a distribution structure, I can help them do that and build out their structure. So I've been able to dabble and jump into a lot of parts of the business. But one thing I've noticed, whether you implement technology or anything else, it's always about the human factor, right? It's always about who's managing that and how do all of those people interact with each other and work with each other. So I'm taking more of an intangible approach, or giving you the intangible advantage of how you put everything together and make things work, and how those work well through partnerships and collaborations. Because in my years of experience doing this, partnerships and collaborations are sometimes the things that help you bring down those costs in a way that you never thought possible, and realize that you don't have to be able to do everything yourself. All right, so that's kind of the direction I'm taking this and looking at it from that perspective. So beyond the sale of the product and selling items, you have the before and the after part, right? So how does all of that work, and what do you have in place? And if you have technology in place, are you investing in training in those people so they can use that technology most efficiently, implementing it completely? I mean, Fabricio did a great presentation there on showing some of the things of here. AI is great, but it's crap data in is crap data out. So he started with data has to be accurate. Well, the same thing, you can have the greatest technology in the world and everything set up properly and everything working, but if you didn't train your staff and train your people to use it right, and you think I can use less staff and do it well with technology, but if they don't know how to use the technology, you end up having nothing working properly. So I think those are some of the things that you have to look at investing in, and those are all part of the before aspect. Nish gave some great presentation and great outlines on more efficiency and throughput and moving things faster and automating data, but you still have some part of people interaction with that automation, right? So some of those things are always those things to look at and how those work. But hey, if you've already shipped the product, what happens after, right? They received it, they've got it. What about the customer service? What about the follow-up? What about how did you like what you received? How are those things happening for that brand? Whether you're doing it for your customer or your customer's doing that, or you're the brand that's trying to get stuff out, you still got to think about that. You can hire a 3PL warehouse, or you can hire a fulfillment center to do all the different things for you, receive those orders and ship them out. But you still got to interact with those customers as to saying, do they like what they got? Did it came properly? All those kinds of things, and go from there. So those are some of the things that's from my perspective need to be looked at, besides technology and everything else, beyond the buy box, right? The customer service experience, that's after, and then the before, everybody working together. So that's one aspect of it, about redefining that whole sales process, products that's being sold, etc. Second part, the human element, I think, within the supply chain management. And I talked a little bit about that with training. but not only the training internal, so I mentioned that earlier, on how they use your technology and do what you're doing, but I think a second level step to that is, how are you interacting with your suppliers? How are you interacting with manufacturers that may be shipping into you? How are you interacting with third-party vendors that you're working with? Or how are you interacting with your own software suppliers internally, right, that are helping you set different things up? I think it's a good, sometimes we pay for a system and put it in, or we're working with a vendor and you go, okay, we handed it off to you, here you go do whatever you want to do with it. And we fail to try to figure out how they run their system and how you run your system and how you can make that in an element interaction between the humans to figure out, am I giving you the right information, right data, or am I getting the right information, right data from you? Therefore, I can make handoffs and transitions much easier, avoids less hiccups, avoids less lost product in transition, or things not getting where they're supposed to go because things were miscommunicated or misaligned. But a lot of times we're like, our buck stops here, we hand it off. So chain of custody ends when I hand it to so-and-so. So if it doesn't work, I'm going to blame so-and-so, and we're not looking at the complete end-to-end solution. So I think that's sometimes where partnerships and understanding the end result and who all is in between makes it for a better customer experience, and then keeps that customer longer term with you. So if you're in the industry servicing, like I am, and I'm in a lot of different aspects of the industry, that's some of the things where the human side of Element, not only training your employees and having the right employees in the right place, but on top of that, making sure interactions between employees where you can create those cross-functional teams, even though they're not under the same company, that are working together and liaising, so you're passing on the right data, right information that works for them, or that they're passing to you what works for you, so you can make a smooth transition and it's seamless to the customer when you're doing these things. And the biggest thing that I found, going on to my third point, is partnerships as a value multiplier. A lot of times we get into this business, and you see it all over the place. Let me get out of this and go into like banks, for example. We all have bank accounts and we're with a bank, right? And they used to be just a bank. I go talk to a banker, I have my account there, I do this. Now they do insurance. Now they do your 401k management. Now they do, I mean, anything under the financial realm. You can go into any of your banks and do everything right now, where you had somebody separate doing 401k and somebody separate doing this and somebody else doing your investments. It all falls under. Why? They're diversifying so that they can keep more of your money in house, keep you in the same ecosystem, and make that work. Well, you could do the same thing, and a lot of these people don't have their own stuff. They've partnered with others who supply them that service, but they white label it and sell it as their own. So think of it, you take that same thing and the experience we all have as consumers, and put that now whatever business you're in. You don't have to do everything for everyone, and that's where partnerships become a value multiplier. You have people that are very good at what they do in different areas, and if you find the right partner that you can work with, going back to my second point, where they can give you the right data you need to move through, or you can give them the right data they need, and you have a very good mesh, and you can create a nice ecosystem of collaboration and partnerships. It could be something seamless, and whoever has the first customer could be that white label, and it looks like you do everything when you don't have to really do everything. So for an example, I do trucking for 60% of the customers within the warehouses that I'm a part of. We don't own a truck, and we don't own a trucking company. We have a great partnership with a trucking company that we've had at least in one of our facilities for 18 years, and they do all of our moves for us, everything done for us, and we pass it through, and the customer wants the one-stop shop, wants that ability to not have to deal with something there is foreign to them. So I think that's where the partnerships and getting the right partnerships. I'm not saying you can walk up to anybody and say, hey, partner with me tomorrow, and that's not what I'm suggesting, but I think over time, as you use different people, you'll find the people you mesh with very well, and work out how that all can work together, where you can create that value added and that value multiplier really for the consumer, right? For the customer that's coming in your way that needs your help, where it takes a load off of them, where they could focus on what they're best at, which is their product or service, or getting the branding well, or creating new items related to their offerings, versus you just focus on everything else that they don't have to worry about, with partnerships, without having to build those out yourself. So I think those are some of the things that I've learned throughout my time in doing this, and in all the different companies and stakes. And I've stumbled into the logistics supply chain arena because it was an added value for my customer base, and I wanted to make sure I could create those values. But I also noticed I couldn't create them well without the intangible parts, which brings in the human factor, right people, right place, right time, and right interactions and right partnerships. So that's what I wanted to bring to the table, a little bit different than the technology and everything that you guys have been talking about so far, but sometimes it's overlooked. It's left behind, and I think it's something that's great to bring back to the table. So trust, transparency, collaboration, purpose of alignment, those are the 4 keywords I leave you with, because that kind of brings it all together as you bring in AI technology or trying to figure out final mile delivery or with Adam, or whether it be sourcing from India or whether it be niche with automation. All those aspects still come to play, but there's a human factor. So glad I was here. Thank you for the invite, Ian, and being part of this, and hope it brought value. I'm Richardson with RicheRich LLC, and you can email me at ask@richierich.com. Back to you, Ian.
Beautiful. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate that. Afolabi, you're on point, my man.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thanks. I've been learning a lot. I'm sorry I had to use my phone also so I can be close to what everybody's saying. So without taking much time, I'm Afolabi, and I own and operate a 3PL from here in Pennsylvania, but we do way more than 3PL. So I'm thinking of what can I change the name of this company to? Because we try to work with sellers to see how can we give you a competitive advantage over your competitors or in the market in general. So today we're just going to zero in on tariff engineering. There's so many things you could talk about on tariff, but it's going to take hours for us to really dissect everything. So I'm just going to narrow it down to tariff engineering. I know a lot of people might not have heard of that, which is why we're having this kind of webinar. Tariff engineering is just a way of designing your product to save or to eliminate tariff from the very beginning. Many people are very reactive to tariff rather than being proactive. You have to start thinking of tariff before you pick your product. People go on Jungle Scout, they go on Helium 10, they pick a product, they're not even thinking about tariffs when they're picking their products. They have no clue until the product is about to ship, they finish manufacturing, they want to ship it, and then they get this tariff bill and say, wow, what's going on here? Why is this tariff so high? So, but if we can be proactive and look at tariff and build tariff optimization into your product before you even get to, to selling anything, you will be able to pick the right product. You'll be able to be way more profitable than everybody else. So how do we do it? So I give you an example. So a friend of mine, he said, well, Afolabi, is there a way you can help me save on my product? He was selling like a coffee mug set. And I said, I looked at his product and I said, hey, your product is, ceramic. He says, yes. I said, what's the difference between ceramic and porcelain? It's like, I don't know. They're pretty much the same. I said, well, there is 11% tariff difference between the two. If you make the same product with porcelain, you're saving 11 point something percent. If you're making it in ceramic, they look the same, they feel the same, the customer can't tell the difference. You're going to save a lot of money if you change the material. I said, wow. I said, if you sell it individually, you're going to pay more than if you sell it as a set. I said, oh, there's another product that you're doing. Do you know if you can include a lid in this product, you're going to save money? It's like, why? I said, I didn't write the tariff laws. I'm just quoting the tariff laws for you. So he was able to save a lot of money. There's another company, they make like washing machine accessories. And they reached out to me and said, hey, is there a way you can help us with this? So I looked at it. I said, okay, so you're selling wire or steel reinforced tubing. Do you know that if you can include a cap even a screw-in cap, this product could be duty-free. They're like, get out of it. I said, yes. I said, how much is a cap? A cap is probably 5 cents. If you can add a 5-cent cap to your $10 manufacturing, cost of manufacturing, you could almost get duty-free, or maybe drop your duty rate from like 15% to 3%. So when we're doing when we're talking about tariff engineering, you have to look at so many options that are available to your product, that if you bundle your product with another product, that actually could save you money. So we got to be proactive in the way we approach tariff, so that when you build it into the product from the very beginning, you are going to see significant savings. All your competitors don't know why. You could sell for that price. They are paying hefty tariffs. You are engineering your product to be tariff proof from the very beginning. There are several options that you can do. The first thing is talk to your broker. Make sure you have a really, really good customs broker, because this also gets down to having a really good person that knows their stuff. Talk to your customs broker, tell them to take a look at your product and to give you suggestions on what can I do to my product, what material can I use, what can I bundle with my product to make it better. To make it pay lower tariff. Another thing, like Meghla was saying, is diversification. What countries can I go and manufacture this product so that I can pay lower tariffs? If not, maybe if you make it in India, or you make it in Thailand or Indonesia, it's the same product, and many Chinese factories are already setting up in all these countries. So you might as well just piggyback on the system they already, set in place, and just, follow them there and make your products, in all these countries. Another thing that people don't realize is onshoring. People say, well, how can I bring my product back to the US as a form of tariff engineering? What can I do? US is so expensive. What can I do to be able to make something in the US and I'll still save money, or I'll offer a better value? So when I'm talking about tariff engineering on the side of onshoring your products or manufacturing your products in the US, I'm looking more into value and automation. How can I bring automation into my manufacturing, into my product, that will create a lot of value, and my competitor will not be able to compete? One of the things that we're testing now that it's really fun is, I looked at Apple. Apple is selling a ton of products, and then they're saying free engraving, right? If you go to apple.com, when you're buying your AirPods or buying something, Apple offers to engrave or to do some sort of personalization for you. So personalization, on-demand manufacturing in the US is getting bigger and bigger and bigger for people that can get into it really, really fast before everybody catches on to it. This is one of the only ways I know that your Chinese competitors or factories may not be able to compete with you, when you start offering personalization. Personalization doesn't mean you have to spend gazillion. It just means whatever personalization company you're using, this really, really automated. So what we did in our test is, so we have a bunch of machines, like, state-of-the-art machines that we're using in terms of testing out what customization or personalization would do in terms of tariff or adding value. We want to test why Apple is, doing very well by making some products, by adding more value to their products here. So we did some tests, and we found out that there's a way that I can take your order and use AI to take your order, your personalized order. Let's say, Ian, you ordered something on Amazon, and the seller is offering to write your name or your dog's photo or your cat's face on your product. Do you know that with AI, you can download those orders and use AI to actually push it to the personalization equipment that will actually personalize the product right here in the US, almost fully automated. So these are all this other stuff that you could add to your product. Amazon has gotten into Amazon custom, Amazon personalization. They're getting into Etsy space. Etsy, I believe they said Etsy did like $6 to $7 billion in personalization alone. And Amazon is copying the playbook, but they want to make it better. So these are all the things that you could do. I know many people will have questions, so I want to stop here without going too much into different things, so that people can ask questions from all the other experts that are here.
Thank you so much for that, Afolabi.
You're
Tremendous,
welcome.
tremendous, tremendous. So yes, we will we'll hop straight into Q&A there. I'll open up the floor. I know we do have a couple questions that were asked prior to, but if anyone has additional questions now of any of the specific panelists, please feel free to drop them. And otherwise, I'll be going into the ones that I know are lined up already. But let me fire one actually off in the interim while we wait for a couple to come in. And we'll start with Fabricio. Just a quick question around the GPT aspect. So like if I upload my data to GPT, can it generate forecasts for me?
And I was muted, sorry. The answer is yes, it can, but the question is the quality of those forecasts. The way that algorithms, AI algorithms work are based on what is the next best pixel actually for images or character for words. And that doesn't suffice for trying to understand patterns of data. So they are not built to try to understand patterns of the data. So more and more people are trying to use them for that. They sometimes produce good results because if the data is very linear, it's like the prediction that after 5 twos, another 2 might come is easier than the prediction that after 5, 2, 8, 10, 15, another 8 might come. So the answer is no, they're not built for that. What a lot of people are building, and I mentioned Nixla, I'm going to mention them again. They're a close partner, and we do a lot of things with them. What they're doing is adding the LLM layer to the contextualization of the data. So, for example, we can come to a customer and say, "Hey, there's a peak here on this day. What is this? We don't understand what it is. It's not a pattern." And the customer says it's an influencer campaign. From the moment on, we understand that that was an influencer campaign. The system understands that that was an influencer campaign. In the next influencer campaign, we're going to ask a different question. Hey, we saw something similar. Is this also an influencer campaign? Yes or no? Yes. Then on the 5th influencer campaign, we don't even have to ask questions anymore. So that's the value that LLMs are bringing to forecasting today.
Awesome. And if I don't want to pay for a tool, how can I leverage AI for my forecasts?
That's a good question. It's really hard. You have to pay for something, even if it's access to the algorithms. But as I said, algorithms are going to become more and more commodities. So I think a lot of people are going to have access to good algorithms in a very short period of time. But today, even if it's just to Nixla or to some tool like that, unfortunately you have to pay something. It's becoming very cheap though. So I think in the future, you're not going to have to pay for the algorithms itself. And the secret is going to be on the data quality, on how you are able to operate with that mass of data that you need to forecast something accurately.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Adam, couple questions for you. Coming. How can brands identify when they have enough parcel density to justify a zone skipping strategy?
Yeah, so generally speaking, it's not one variable that determines it, right?
Okay.
You're deciding basically, there's a few factors you're considering. One is your parcel size, right? The other is what your costs are in long distance relative to short distance, and then what the cost of your middle mile is, right? So what the cost of basically, so it's going to vary from organization to organization. What I would generally say in terms of is it even worth looking into is on your shipping cadence, right? So there's two use cases. One is daily, where you're really like, it's customer orders, high sensitivity. Sometimes though, customers, shippers will actually have the ability to sort of bundle their parcels into weekly shipments. For example, if you're doing like replenishments or if you work in like, an automotive parts type environment, or you're basically sending construction materials where it's not necessarily like a customer is waiting on this by the hour. You might be able to get more volume density by bucketing weekly, but I would generally say if you break out the regions of your shipments, so look at basically in any given shipping period, whether that's a day, 2 days, week, do you have enough volume going to any particular region to fill up a pallet, right? So let's say 400 or 500 pounds of packages going to a particular region is when, okay, maybe it makes sense now to take advantage of zone skipping, either air skipping it or putting it on a pallet and moving it by LTL.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And what are the operational and data prerequisites you'd say for integrating regional carriers effectively?
Operation, yeah. So, I think in terms, right, the most, so you'll need to be able to have the capability to so there's two sides of it. One is data and one is operational and process, right? So wherever it is, this is always, operationally, it's always easier when you're fulfilling from your warehouse than if you're having a 3PL handle fulfillment and now you need to somehow change their process to bring on a different regional carrier. It can definitely get a little bit more complicated. But one is basically, do you have the ability to sort, segment, and stage parcels that are basically going to that particular regional carrier? So if before it was only FedEx and UPS, and now it's FedEx, UPS, and On Track. I need to basically make sure that I have the staging locations and kind of sorting, plan for, okay, how, being able to identify those packages that are labeled for that additional carrier and putting them in that, that section so they're shipped accordingly. And also, if you're using multiple different carrier injection points for those and you're not just injecting them, having them picked up locally, you might need to set aside basically by carrier, by injection point, right? So meaning if you have like On Track that you're going to zone skip to their West Coast warehouses to take advantage of local rates there versus, On Track that you're going to bring into, the Southeast, right? You're going to need to have separate staging locations there. So that's the operational challenge. I think data-wise, right, do you have the ability to post post customer sale, analyze your orders in bulk for zone skip and regional carrier kind of opportunities, right? So that's going to be the more complicated one. That's if you really want to optimize. If you just want to say, I want to go with my regional carrier if their shipping label cost is less, then you just need the ability to rate shop and print out those labels, right? So you need a system like, it could be ShipStation, Shippo, et cetera, where you're able to basically set up those regional carriers and able to print labels and, apply them accordingly based on what items have the cheapest rate. Awesome.
Thank you for that. And Afolabi, a couple questions for you here. Like, what are the steps that, an organization needs to take right now that can instantly lower or eliminate, like, say, a tariff burden? And like, what stage of business should you really be thinking of even, looking into this?
Well, I would say in terms of what stage, I would say to start thinking of tariff before you launch any product. Make sure that when you're shortlisting the products you want to launch, you look at the tariffs. Have your freight forwarder or customs broker look at the tariffs of all these products you're shortlisting, or you can just go online to the HCS, the government HCS website, so that, and just type in the products in there. You might be able to figure it out. It's a little more complex than that, but your customs broker will be able to help you to say, okay, these products you're shortlisting, it has 85% tariff. It's under, IEEPA, it's under retaliatory, all those things you need to know. And what are the steps you can take now? Let's say you've launched your products and you didn't know, which is fine. All of us, we launch products that we didn't know. I would say the first thing to do is to do an audit. Have your customs broker or a goods an expert first audit your product. But the auditing that you should request from them is not just, oh, help me look and see, help me classify my product. Classification is just going to tell you what tariff you'll be paying. But go to a lot of higher, go to a higher level and say, help me find out what tariff I should be paying. But while you're doing it, help me watch out for changes or modifications that I can make to my products to actually pay lower tariffs. Because if you tell them to do that, then they instead of them keeping a very focused focused attention on your product, they will have a wider view and say, okay, let me widen my net and say, as I'm looking at Ian's product, as I'm scrolling through government's database, let me also look at variations of his product that actually qualifies for lower tariff. For example, that's how I found in my friend's situation. I was trying to help him audit and classify his product accurately. And I said, wait a minute. As I'm looking at the government's data, I said, oh my God, porcelain is lower tariff. And it looks exactly the same. And I also went on and see, oh, if I do a 6 set of this product, it actually is lower because the government, for whatever reason, they like you to bring some product in sets. They give you lower tariff rate if you bring them in set rather than bringing them individually. So when I was looking at that, I started noticing all these other golden opportunities like jackpots. I call them jackpots. I started seeing all these jackpots. Like, oh, wait a minute. So if you do this and you do this, if you switch this material, or if you include this product, or for example, you're selling ink, you're selling a printer. If you bundle your ink with your printer, the ink is pretty much duty-free. But you have to create that bundle. It's what I call the sandwich rule, whereby are you importing the whole sandwich, or you're importing the sandwich, the tomatoes and the lettuce and the onions and everything? Because when you're importing it as a sandwich, you don't pay duty on tomatoes and onions and lettuce. You only pay duties for the whole sandwich, right? So those are the things you should talk to your customs broker to help you widen their views as they're auditing your product or classifying your product. Don't just narrow down to your product. They should help you look all around your product and see all these other opportunities that could really mean a big savings to you.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, as we close out, I definitely want to acknowledge all the wonderful panelists we had today, and what was put forth with regards to the presentation, but also everyone who decided to watch this, whether it be the recording or showed up live. Appreciate you. Thank you for this, and hope you got value for this. At the end of the day, the common thread of this particular piece was just, growth is operational. It's the back end, it's your supply chain, it's your sourcing decisions, your forecasting, your fulfillment, your softwares and integrations you choose to use, your tariffs, the economics. That's how to determine how far you actually scale. And we touched on multiple parts of that in this particular piece today. And I'm certain that if you go and apply even a fraction of what was discussed here, you're going to see the impact on your organization, as you continue to grow, no matter what stage you're at. So, thanks for spending the time with us today. And most importantly, go execute, because information without execution is nothing. Take care, everybody.
Take care. Thanks.